It was not supposed to happen that way. The father, Daniel, usually came home late. His office hours, his meetings, and his business dinners always kept him outside till night. The maid, Grace, knew this routine very well. She knew exactly when he would come and when the house would be quiet. But that day was different. Daniel's meeting ended earlier than expected. The rain outside had cancelled his evening plans, and for the first time in weeks, he wanted to spend some quiet time with his child. He wanted to surprise him. He parked the car, smiled to himself, and walked slowly towards the house. Everything looked normal from the outside. The lights inside the living room were on. The curtains were half closed. Daniel unlocked the front door carefully. He did not want his child to hear him right away. He thought it would be fun to enter quietly and surprise him. But the moment he stepped inside, he felt something strange. The house was not silent. He heard voices. Soft voices. A whisper. Then a small laugh. Then something that sounded like crying. He froze near the entrance. His heart began to beat faster. He carefully placed his briefcase on the floor and moved closer. The voices were coming from the living room. He could clearly hear his child's voice, soft and gentle, mixed with another voice, the maid's voice. Daniel frowned. What was happening? He stopped just before the living room door. He leaned closer. The sound was clearer now. The maid was saying something in a low tone. His child was answering back. Then came a silence, followed by a sound Daniel could not understand. His mind began to race. Why was Grace so close to his child? Why did it sound so secret? Why were they whispering like that? Without thinking, Daniel pushed the door slightly. What he saw made his eyes widen. Grace was sitting very close to his little son, holding something in her hands. The boy looked deeply focused, almost too focused for his age. Grace leaned down, whispering again. Her face looked tense, almost emotional. Daniel's first thought was fear. Is she hurting him? His breath caught in his throat. His fists tightened. He almost shouted her name, but something stopped him. The boy suddenly looked up, straight into Grace's eyes, and smiled. A soft, innocent smile. Grace's own eyes filled with tears, and she quickly wiped them before they could fall. Daniel stood frozen. He could not move. His mind was torn between two thoughts. One part screamed that something wrong was happening. The other part whispered that maybe, just maybe, he was misunderstanding what he saw. Grace did not notice him yet. She was too focused on the child. She leaned closer, whispering words Daniel could not hear. Her hands moved gently, as if guiding the boy to do something. The boy nodded, serious, then repeated her words softly. Daniel's heart thudded in his chest. He wanted to step forward, but his legs felt heavy. Then, suddenly, Grace turned her head slightly. Her eyes met his. For a moment, time stopped. Grace's face turned pale. She quickly straightened up, her hands shaking. The boy, still innocent, looked from his father to the maid, not understanding why the room had suddenly become so silent. Sir, Grace whispered, almost breathless. Daniel did not answer. His jaw tightened. His eyes moved from the maid to his child, then back again. He wanted to ask 100 questions, but no words came out. The boy looked confused. Papa? You are home early. Daniel took one slow step into the room. His voice, when it finally came, was low and heavy. What are you doing with my son? Grace's lips trembled. She opened her mouth, but no sound came. Her eyes filled again with tears, this time she could not hide them. She lowered her head, almost ashamed, almost guilty. The boy looked at his father and said softly, Papa, don't be angry. But Daniel's eyes stayed on Grace. His heart was burning with questions. His mind could not understand what he had just walked into. Grace finally looked up, her voice breaking. Please, let me explain. And in that heavy silence, the story truly began. The room was filled with silence. Daniel stood near the door, his eyes fixed on Grace. His son sat quietly between them, looking from one face to another, not understanding why his father looked so serious. Grace's hands trembled. She wanted to speak, but her lips refused to move. She felt like a thief who had been caught, even though in her heart she knew she was innocent. Daniel finally broke the silence. "I asked you something." His voice was sharp. "What were you doing with my son?" Grace swallowed hard. Her eyes fell on the little boy, who looked scared now. She took a deep breath and whispered, "I was only helping him, please believe me." Daniel's brows tightened. Helping him? With what? Why were you whispering like that? Why are you hiding things from me? Grace looked down, unable to meet his angry eyes. The boy suddenly held his father's hand. "Papa, please don't be angry at her," he said softly. "She was not hurting me." Daniel turned to his son. His voice softened, but only a little. "Then what was she doing?" The child looked at Grace, as if asking for permission to tell the truth. Grace shook her head quickly, a silent signal. She did not want him to say anything. But it was too late. Daniel had already noticed. His anger grew. "Why are you stopping him? What are you hiding from me, Grace?" Tears rolled down Grace's cheeks. She had been strong all her life, but at that moment, she felt weak. She whispered, almost choking on her words, "Sir, I cannot explain everything like this. But I swear on God, I was not harming your son. Please, let me explain." Daniel stepped closer. His eyes were burning with suspicion. "Then explain now." The child suddenly spoke, his little voice breaking the tension. "Papa, she was teaching me." Daniel froze. "Teaching you? Teaching you what?" The boy looked nervous. His small hands twisted together as he whispered, "She was teaching me something special, something you don't know." Daniel felt a strange wave of confusion. He turned his eyes back to Grace. "Is that true? You were teaching my son? Why in secret? Why hide it from me?" Grace nodded slowly, wiping her tears. "Yes, it is true. I was teaching him. But I did not hide it because of shame. I hid it because I was afraid. I thought if you found out, you would fire me." Daniel's heart skipped a beat. He could not understand why teaching his son would be a reason to fire her. He asked firmly, "What could you possibly teach him that would make me so angry?" Grace looked down again. She hesitated, her voice trembling. "Because it was not just teaching, it was something I promised myself I would never do again. I broke my own promise. That is why I was afraid." Her words were heavy with mystery. Daniel felt both anger and curiosity fighting inside him. He wanted to shout, but another part of him wanted to stay silent and listen. He took a step back, trying to control his emotions. His son's innocent eyes stared at him, filled with confusion. Grace continued, her voice low. "Sir, I know you think I am only a maid. But your son, he is more than just an employer's child to me. He is like—" She stopped, unable to finish the sentence. Daniel's chest tightened. The thought of his maid saying such words about his son made him uncomfortable, but something in her voice told him it was not what he feared. The boy held Grace's hand and said softly, "Papa, she was teaching me how to—" He paused, looking at her face. Grace quickly interrupted, her tone urgent. "No. Don't tell him yet." Daniel's patience finally broke. He raised his voice. "Enough, Grace. I have the right to know what is happening in my own house. I will not wait another second. Tell me now, or you can pack your things and leave tonight." Grace's whole body shook. She knew if she refused, she would lose the only family she had left. But if she told the truth, everything would change. Her tears fell again as she whispered, "Sir, please give me one chance. Let me explain from the beginning. If you still think I am guilty, I will leave forever." Daniel stood still, breathing heavily. His son looked at him with pleading eyes. After a long pause, Daniel finally said, "Fine. You have one chance. But remember, if you are lying, nothing will save you. Grace nodded slowly. She wiped her face and held her hands together tightly. Her eyes lifted, meeting his. Then listen, she whispered, her voice trembling but steady. The truth begins with a story from my past, a story about the child I once had, and the mistake that still haunts me. The room fell silent again. Daniel's anger was still there, but his curiosity was stronger now. The mystery was just beginning. And Grace knew, once she started her story, there would be no turning back. Grace sat down slowly on the edge of the sofa. Her hands twisted nervously in her lap, and her eyes stayed low, as if she could not bear Daniel's piercing gaze. The little boy sat beside her, holding her arm, as if trying to protect her from his father's anger. Daniel folded his arms. His voice was cold, but firm. Start talking. I don't have all night. Grace took a deep breath. Her heart was racing, and her throat felt dry. For years, she had hidden the truth. For years, she had locked her memories in a dark corner of her mind. But now, standing in front of her employer and his son, she had no choice. Her voice came out soft and broken. Sir, I once had a child of my own. Daniel blinked. He had not expected those words. His son looked up at Grace, his small eyes full of surprise. Grace continued, her voice trembling. Yes, many years ago, before I came here. He was a little boy, almost the same age as your son. Her lips quivered. She tried to smile, but it was a sad, heavy smile. He was my whole world. I had nothing, no money, no family, no home, but I had him. He gave me reason to live. Daniel's arms slowly unfolded. Something in Grace's tone made his anger soften, though suspicion still lingered in his eyes. Grace's eyes filled with tears as she whispered, but the world was cruel. I was working 2 jobs, struggling every day to feed him. Sometimes he slept hungry. Sometimes I worked all night, leaving him with neighbors. I thought I was doing my best, but... Her voice broke. She pressed a hand against her mouth to stop herself from crying too loudly. The boy touched her arm gently, as if to comfort her. Grace forced herself to continue. One winter night, I came home late. He was sick, very sick. He had been coughing all day, but I could not leave my job. I had no money for medicine. I held him in my arms, I prayed, I begged God to save him. Daniel felt a lump form in his throat. Grace's tears fell freely now. Her voice cracked like glass. But he did not wake up the next morning. My little boy, my only child, he died in my arms. The room went completely silent. Even Daniel, who had been ready to shout moments ago, could not speak. The weight of her words pressed against the air. Grace lowered her head. Since that day, I promised myself never to get too close to another child. The pain was too much. I thought if I kept my heart closed, I would never break again. She looked up for the first time, her eyes red and swollen. But then, your son came into my life. The boy blinked. Me? He asked softly. Grace nodded, a weak smile on her face. Yes, you. From the first day I came to this house, he reminded me of my boy. The way he laughed, the way he asked questions, it was the same. At first, I tried to keep my distance. I told myself he was not mine, that I should only do my duty as a maid. But every day, he came closer to me. He trusted me. He shared his little secrets. Slowly, I broke my own promise. I became attached. Daniel clenched his jaw, unsure how to feel. His anger was still alive, but something deeper was stirring inside him. Grace continued, her voice more steady now. And when I saw how lonely he was, how much he missed you when you worked late, I could not stop myself. I began teaching him little things. Songs, prayers, words from my own childhood. I thought, maybe, in this way, I could give him the love I failed to give my own son. Her tears returned, but her voice was firm. I never wanted to hide anything evil, sir. I only hid it because I was afraid. Afraid you would think I was crossing the line. Afraid you would push me away. The boy looked at his father, his little hands tugging at his sleeve. Papa, she was not bad. She was only helping me. Daniel's chest rose and fell heavily. He turned away, walking slowly to the window. He looked out at the dark night, his mind storming with questions. Was she telling the truth? Was she only trying to cover her mistake? Or was this truly the story of a broken mother who had found comfort in his son? After a long silence, Daniel spoke without turning back. If all of this is true, then why didn't you tell me before? Why wait until I catch you whispering like thieves in my own house? Grace's voice trembled once more. Because I feared losing him. I could not lose another child. Even if he was not mine. I could not bear that pain again. Daniel closed his eyes. The image of Grace holding his son, whispering with tears in her eyes, returned to him. It was not an image of harm. It was an image of grief, of longing, of love that had been buried too long. But still, his heart was not ready to forgive. Not yet. He turned around slowly. His voice was cold again, but quieter. This story, it explains much. But it does not erase the fact that you kept secrets under my roof. If you truly loved my son, you should have trusted me. Grace lowered her head once more. I know, sir. I accept whatever you decide. But please, do not think I ever wanted to harm him. Daniel's eyes met his son's. The boy's innocent face was filled with tears now, silently begging his father to forgive Grace. And in that moment, Daniel realized his decision would not only change the maid's future, but also his child's heart. The night outside was quiet, but inside the living room the air was heavy. Daniel stood near the window, his hands behind his back, his eyes lost in the darkness. Grace sat on the sofa with her head low, while the little boy stayed close to her, holding her hand as if afraid she might disappear. Daniel finally turned around. His voice was calm, but sharp. You told me about your child. But you have not told me everything. I can feel it. What else are you hiding? Grace took a deep breath. She knew this moment would come. She could not escape the truth anymore. Slowly, she raised her eyes and looked at him. You are right, sir. There is more, something I never wanted to say. But maybe tonight, I must. Daniel crossed his arms. Then speak. Grace's eyes filled again with tears. Her voice broke as she began. When my son died, I did not only lose him. I lost myself. People blamed me. They said I was careless, that I was a bad mother. My neighbors whispered that I should not have left him alone while I worked. Some even said that I did not deserve to be a mother. Her hands shook as she wiped her face. I believed them. For years, I carried that guilt in my heart. I told myself every day, it was your fault. You failed him. That pain destroyed me. I left my town. I left everything behind. I started working as a maid in different houses, but I never stayed long. Every time I saw a child, the memories came back. Daniel's face softened for a moment, though he quickly hid it. He asked, and when you came here? Grace gave a small, broken smile. When I came here, I thought it would be the same. Just another job. Just another house. But then, I saw your son. And everything changed. The boy looked up at her with wide eyes. Changed how? Grace's voice trembled. He reminded me of my boy. His smile, his curiosity, even the way he called my name. It was like God had given me a second chance, a second child to love. But I was afraid. Afraid that if I loved him too much, I would lose him too. Afraid that if you saw, you would push me away. Daniel felt a strange pain in his chest. He thought about the times he had left his son alone at home because of work, the times he had promised to come back early but didn't. He realized that while he was busy with his life, Grace had been the one giving his son love, comfort, and attention. Still, his pride would not let him accept it easily. You should have trusted me, Daniel said coldly. You should have told me the truth instead of whispering in the dark. Grace lowered her head again. I know. But I am not only a maid, sir. I am also a broken mother. And broken mothers, they make mistakes. The boy tugged at Daniel's hand. His small voice shook. Papa, she was not bad. She was teaching me things you never had time for. She told me stories, songs, prayers. She told me not to be afraid when I had nightmares. She held my hand when I was sick. She is not like the people outside. She cares for me. Daniel looked down at his son. The innocence in his words hit him harder than Grace's tears. Grace added softly, Sir, I never wanted to take your place. I know he is your son. But I only wanted to protect him, because I could not protect my own. Her words hung in the air like a heavy weight. Daniel turned his face away. His heart was fighting two battles, one of anger and one of gratitude. He could not deny the truth, his son was attached to Grace. Removing her from the house would break the boy's heart. But keeping her would mean living with the memory of her secret. Grace stood slowly. She placed her hand on her chest and said in a firm but emotional voice, If you want me to leave, I will. I will pack my things tonight. But please, do not think I ever harmed your son. If anything, I gave him the love that still lived in my heart, the love of a mother who lost everything. The boy suddenly cried out, hugging Grace tightly. No! Don't go! Papa, please don't send her away. I need her. Daniel froze. The sight of his child crying in the maid's arms broke something inside him. His son's tears were not small, they were deep, desperate, real. Grace held the boy close, her own tears flowing. Shoo, it's okay, my child. Maybe your father is right. Maybe I should go. The boy shook his head wildly. No. If she goes, I will be alone again. Daniel's throat tightened. He had never seen his son like this before. For the first time, he realized the truth. The bond between his son and Grace was not fake. It was not something he could erase. It was strong, almost unbreakable. Still, his pride whispered, What will people say? What if they think you cannot care for your own child without a maid? He closed his eyes. The storm inside him grew louder. And when he finally opened them again, his decision was still unclear. The night grew colder. Rain tapped softly against the window, filling the silence in the room. Daniel stood still, his face unreadable, while Grace held the boy close. The child's little arms were wrapped tightly around her, his tears wetting her shoulder. Daniel's chest tightened. He wanted to pull his son away, but something inside him stopped him. He had never seen his child cling to anyone with such desperation, not even to him. Grace whispered gently to the boy, Don't cry, my child, everything will be okay. Daniel finally spoke, his voice low but heavy. This cannot continue. Grace looked up, her face pale. Sir. He raised his hand to silence her. I need time to think. But one thing is clear, you crossed a line in my house. You kept secrets, and you made my son dependent on you. The boy quickly protested, his small voice shaking. No, Papa. She didn't do anything bad. She only loves me. Daniel looked at his son, his heart softening for a moment. But pride and fear pulled him back. Love is not the question here. Respect and trust are. And she broke mine. The boy's eyes filled again. But Papa, if she goes, who will be with me when you're gone? Who will tell me stories? Who will hold my hand when I'm scared? Daniel felt the sting of his child's words. He had always believed he was giving his son the best life by working hard, by earning money. But now, in front of him, his child was crying not for toys, not for gifts, but for comfort, for love. Grace lowered her head, her voice trembling. Sir, I never wanted to take your place. I only filled the empty hours when you could not be here. But I know. I should have told you the truth. Daniel's thoughts spun in circles. He imagined the neighbors if they knew. They would whisper, "The maid is raising his child. The father is too busy to care." His relatives would question his judgment. His pride told him to end it now, to send Grace away before things got worse. But his heart told him something else. The boy pulled at his father's sleeve, begging, "Papa, please don't send her away. I need her, like I need you." Daniel's throat tightened. He looked at Grace, then at his son. He could see the bond between them. Strong. Unbreakable. Real. But could he accept it? He walked slowly to the armchair and sat down, his face buried in his hands. The weight of fatherhood pressed on him. He had always thought being a father meant providing money, food, and a roof over their heads. But tonight, he realized there was more, something he had been failing to give: presence. Grace whispered again, her tone full of pain. "Sir, I will leave if that is what you want. I will not fight. But please, do not punish your son for my mistake." The boy cried louder. "No. I won't let you go." He clung to Grace as if his small arms could keep her in the house forever. Daniel lifted his head slowly. His eyes were red, though he would never admit it. He looked at Grace, then at his son, then back again. Inside, two voices fought. One voice screamed, "Protect your pride. Do not let a maid replace you." The other whispered, "Look at your son's tears. Look at his heart. He is telling you what he needs." For a long moment, Daniel said nothing. The rain outside grew heavier, echoing the storm in his mind. Finally, he stood up. His voice was calm, but his words were cold. "Grace, go to your room. Tomorrow, I will decide." Grace's lips parted, but she said nothing. She gently released the boy's hands, even though he tried to hold on. She looked at Daniel one last time, her eyes full of sorrow, then walked slowly down the hallway to her small room. The boy cried out, "Papa, please. Don't make her leave." Daniel knelt beside his son, his heart breaking at the sight of his tears. He placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Listen to me, son. I love you. I will never let you be alone." But the child shook his head. His words cut deep. "You don't understand. I love her too." Daniel froze. The words struck him harder than any blow. His son loved her deeply, innocently, truthfully. That night, after the boy finally cried himself to sleep, Daniel sat alone in the living room. His thoughts battled endlessly. Pride against love. Trust against fear. Future against past. For the first time in years, Daniel did not know what to do. And when the clock struck midnight, his eyes lifted to the hallway where Grace's door was closed. He whispered to himself, "What if I am wrong?" But the answer did not come. The father's dilemma had only begun. The night felt endless for Daniel. He sat alone in the living room, staring at the dim light of the lamp. His son was asleep upstairs, but even in his dreams, the boy's face looked tear-stained. Grace remained silent in her small room, her suitcase half-packed, ready for the worst. Daniel's heart was heavy. Pride told him to end this tonight. But every time he closed his eyes, he saw his son's voice in tears. He heard his words again, "I love her too." Those words echoed in his chest like thunder. By morning, Daniel had not slept. The sun rose slowly, and the house filled with soft light. His son came running into the living room, eyes wide with fear. "Papa, did you send her away?" Daniel looked at his boy, his lips pressed tightly together. "No, not yet." The boy clutched his father's arm. "Please don't. If she leaves, I will never smile again." Daniel's throat tightened. He knew he could not ignore his son's heart. He stood up slowly and walked down the hallway toward Grace's room. Grace was sitting on the bed, her small bag beside her. Her eyes were swollen from crying all night. When Daniel entered, she quickly stood, her hands shaking. "Sir, I am ready. Just tell me what you decide." Daniel looked at her for a long moment. His voice was low. Grace, you should have trusted me. You should have told me the truth from the beginning. Her lips trembled. I know. And for that, I am sorry. Daniel's eyes softened. But last night, for the first time, I saw something clearly. My son needs you. Not because you are a maid, but because you gave him what I could not. Presence. Care. Love. Grace's eyes widened. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Sir, Daniel continued, his voice stronger now. I worked hard to give him a good life, but I forgot that money cannot replace love. I see now that you filled the empty space in his heart. And if I take you away from him, I will break him, not protect him. Grace covered her mouth with her hand, unable to stop her sobs. Daniel stepped closer. His words were slow, heavy, but sincere. From today, you are not just a maid in this house. You are family. My son's second mother, and someone I trust. Grace gasped. Her knees grew weak, and she lowered herself onto the bed, crying with relief. Thank you, sir, thank you. I will never forget this kindness. Just then, the boy ran into the room. When he heard his father's words, his face lit up like the morning sun. He threw himself into Grace's arms and shouted, I told you, Papa. She belongs here with us. Daniel's eyes filled with emotion as he watched them. Slowly, he placed his hand on his son's shoulder and then on Grace's. No more secrets, he said softly. We will raise him together. Not as father and maid, but as a family. The boy hugged them both tightly, his little arms trying to hold the two adults together. Grace wept into his hair, while Daniel finally allowed a small tear to escape his eye. For the first time in years, Daniel felt the weight on his chest lift. The house no longer felt cold or empty. It was warm, alive, with love. Later that day, the neighbors noticed Grace staying in the house. Some whispered, some judged. But Daniel no longer cared. He knew the truth. His son's happiness mattered more than their words. And every evening after that, Daniel came home earlier. He no longer left his son's childhood to chance. Sometimes he found Grace teaching his son songs from her own culture, sometimes prayers, sometimes simple lessons about kindness. And instead of anger, Daniel felt peace. One night, as he watched them laugh together, he finally whispered to himself, maybe God gave me a second chance too. Not just her. Grace looked up and smiled through her tears. For the first time, she felt she had a home again. The little boy, sitting between them, smiled the brightest smile of all. His family was not ordinary, not perfect, but it was his. And in that unexpected ending, love had found its way back into all their hearts.